phrase, God gives his hardest battles to his strongest soldiers, there's a lot of truth to that, but I also think it's very important to note that sometimes God gives us really hard battles that he knows we can't win unless we learn how to rely on him. Happy Sunday, everyone. Today we're going to be in Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41, which is Jesus calms the storm. A little bit of background on what's happening right now is Jesus is teaching these big crowds. Everybody's loving to hear him. And then in verse 35, it says, that day when evening came, he said to his disciples, let us go over to the other side. They're on one side of the Sea of Galilee, and they need to go over to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. And he makes two promises in this one sentence. He says, let us go. He doesn't say, let you go over, but I'm going to be over on this side. He doesn't say, let me go over, but you're going to be over here. He says, we're going to go from point A to point B together. And then the other promise he makes is he said, over to the other side. He doesn't say we're going to get halfway into the Sea of Galilee and then sink. He says, we're going to make it together from this side to that side. So they leave this big crowd and they start crossing the Sea of Galilee in their boat. And it says a furious squall came up and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. So they're in the middle of the Sea of Galilee and this huge storm just starts crushing their boat. Rightfully so, the disciples, they're pretty shaken up. They're pretty scared. But here's what it says Jesus was doing. It says Jesus was in the stern sleeping on a cushion. The disciples wake him and said to him, teacher, don't you care if we drown? Now, I kind of imagine this, like, they're screaming and Jesus just sitting there napping and the disciples, teacher, don't you care if we drown? Like, we're going to drown right now. Verse 39, it says, he got up, rebuked the wind and said to the waves, quiet, be still. And the wind died down and it was completely calm. The disciples are freaking out. There's this huge storm. Jesus is sleeping. They finally wake him. They're like, don't you even care? And he gets up and it's just like, shh. And everything is calm again. And then in verse 40, Jesus said to the disciples, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? He says, you have seen me perform miracle after miracle after miracle. Do you still have no faith in me? Why are you so afraid when you know that I'm right here? You know that I never left you. You know that I said we're going from one side to the other together. And in verse 41, it says they were terrified and asked each other, who is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him. Let's break this down a little bit more. First of all, why did the disciples end up in this storm? It wasn't because they were disobeying God. It's actually because they were obeying God. They ended up in this storm because of their obedience to Jesus. I can also guarantee you that Jesus knew there was going to be a storm. It's not like they got out there and he woke up and he was like, oh my gosh, no, like he knew that this was going to happen and he brought them out there anyways with the promise that they were going to make it from one side to the other. The only way the disciples were going to make it across is if they relied on Jesus. If they hadn't have woken him up saying, Lord, save us, they would have sank. Jesus willingly brought them into the storm knowing that the only way they were going to make it out is if they turned their eyes to him and relied on him. Maybe you're going through a period of life where it's just so many things are happening and what it feels like is it's just wave after wave after wave and you're like, Jesus, are you sleeping on the stern of the boat? Do you not see what is happening to me? But God's sitting there going, you need to wake me. You need to cry out to me and say, Lord, save me, Lord, help me, because he brought you into this storm to teach you how to rely on him. I went through a situation a couple months ago where that is what my life felt like. When I was going through that, this is what Jesus brought me to, and this is what I turned to in my Bible, and it was just one of those things of, I brought you into this so that you can learn how to rely on me. I brought you into this so that you learn how to cry out to me. I brought you into this so that you learn that only I can bring you out of this. Nothing woke Jesus but the cry of his disciples. Nothing woke God but the cry of his children saying, please help me, I need you. If you're in this season of storm or stress or whatever it may be and you're going, God, I can't fight this on my own. Why did you bring me into this? I promise you, God is sitting there going, I don't want you to fight this on your own. I don't want you to deal with the storm on your own. I want you to deal with it with me. I love you all so dearly and I hope you have a blessed rest of your Sunday.